Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Retribution and stared at the massive screen in front of him. After 3,000 years of traveling through space, they were finally home. The Sol system lay ahead of them, but it was not the same place his ancestors had fled from so long ago. "Sir, we have visual contact with the inner planets," Captain Lisa Howard said from her station. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the excitement beneath it. Everyone on the bridge felt the same way. They were the great-grandchildren of the humans who had escaped Earth when the aliens destroyed it. But this moment meant everything to them. Jake nodded and walked closer to the main display. The sun looked the same as it always had, burning bright and yellow in the center of the system. But where Earth should have been, there was only empty space and glowing debris. The planet that had given birth to humanity was gone, turned into radioactive dust by the Zephyrian Empire. "How many ships do we have in the fleet?" Jake asked. 212 vessels, sir," Commander Rick Palmer answered. He was in charge of fleet intelligence and had been planning this return for decades. "Total population is 4.7 million humans. All ships are battle-ready and waiting for your orders," Jake smiled grimly. When their ancestors had fled Earth, they had been refugees with barely working ships and limited supplies. The Zephyrians had thought they were destroying a weak species that would die out in space. They had been very wrong. "Show me what our scouts found in the asteroid belt," Jake ordered. The screen changed to show a massive mining operation. Huge Zephyrian ships were pulling metal and rocks from what had once been Earth's asteroid belt. Smaller vessels moved between them like busy insects. The aliens had turned humanity's birthplace into their personal resource mine. Dr. Amanda Foster stepped forward from her position at the science station. She was young for such an important job, but she had created some of their most powerful weapons. "Admiral, the Zephyrians have no idea what we can do now. Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs." "Show him," Jake said. Amanda activated a small device on her wrist. A hologram appeared in the air, showing a ship the size of a building. Then the hologram flickered and the ship simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not blown apart, just gone. "Our quantum disruptors can break apart matter at the smallest level," Amanda explained. "We can erase their ships from existence without leaving any trace behind." Jake watched the demonstration with satisfaction. The humans who had fled Earth had been farmers, teachers, engineers, and families. The humans who were returning were soldiers, scientists, and survivors. They had spent 3,000 years getting ready for this day. "Sir, we're picking up movement from the Zephyrian mining fleet," Lisa said. "It looks like 3 patrol ships heading our way. Are we in their sensor range yet?" Jake asked. Rick checked his instruments. "Negative, sir. They're just doing a routine patrol. They have no idea we're here." Jake thought for a moment. The element of surprise was their greatest advantage right now. Once the Zephyrians knew humans still existed, they would call for help from their empire. The aliens controlled hundreds of worlds and had armies that numbered in the billions. "Take us closer, but keep us hidden," Jake ordered. "I want to see what we're dealing with." The Retribution moved forward silently. Their new engines made no sound and left no energy signature that alien sensors could detect. Around them, the rest of the human fleet followed like ghosts in space. As they got closer to the Sol system, Jake could see more details on the main screen. The Zephyrian ships were huge and ugly, covered in weapons and armor. They looked like they had been built for war and nothing else, but Jake knew that looks could be deceiving. His own ships might be smaller, but they packed more firepower than entire Zephyrian battle fleets. "Admiral, I'm reading something strange," Lisa said, frowning at her display. "There's a structure in Earth's orbit. It's not a ship or a station. It looks like some kind of monument." Jake felt his anger grow. The Zephyrians had not only destroyed Earth, they had built something to celebrate it. "Put it on screen." The image that appeared made every human on the bridge go silent. Floating where Earth's moon used to be was a massive crystal structure. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, spinning slowly in the vacuum of space. Words in the Zephyrian language covered its surface. Can you translate that? Jake asked Amanda. She worked at her console for a few minutes, then looked up with disgust on her face. It's a victory monument, sir. It talks about the cleansing of the pest world and honors the Zephyrian commander who ordered Earth's destruction. The bridge went completely quiet. Jake could feel the rage building in every person around him. They had all grown up hearing stories about Earth from their grandparents. They had seen pictures of blue oceans and green forests. They had dreamed of the world their ancestors had called home. Now, they were looking at an alien monument that celebrated its destruction. Sir, the patrol ships are getting closer, Rick reported. They'll be in visual range in 10 minutes, Jake made his decision. Red alert, all ships prepare for combat. We're going to give the Zephyrians a message they'll never forget. The lights on the bridge dimmed and changed to red. Throughout the fleet, millions of humans prepared for the battle they had been waiting 3,000 years to fight. They were no longer refugees running from a superior enemy. They were hunters who had finally found their prey. Open a channel to all ships, Jake ordered. Channel open, sir. Jake looked at the camera that would broadcast his words to every human in the fleet. This is Admiral Morrison. Today, we return to the place where our story began. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity cannot be erased. Today, we begin to collect the debt that the Zephyrians owe us for our dead world. He paused and looked at the alien monument on the screen. Today, we start our vengeance. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Davis checked his weapon one more time before climbing into the stealth craft. Behind him, Sergeant Kate Williams and Corporal Danny Rodriguez did the same. They were about to become the first humans to set foot on Earth in 3,000 years. Remember, this is reconnaissance only, Mike told his team as they strapped into their seats. We go in, gather intelligence, and get out. No heroics, no revenge missions. We need to know what we're dealing with before the Admiral makes his move. Kate nodded, but her jaw was tight with anger. She had studied the old records about Earth, seen the pictures of cities and forests that her ancestors had called home. Now they were heading toward a dead world that the aliens had turned into their personal trophy case. The stealth craft separated from the main fleet and moved toward Earth's orbit. As they got closer, Mike could see the destruction more clearly. What had once been Earth's moon was now nothing but scattered rocks and metal debris. The Zephyrians had blown it apart to mine its resources, leaving behind a field of cosmic garbage. Jesus, Danny whispered, staring out the window. They really did destroy everything. Stay focused, Mike ordered, though he felt the same sick feeling in his stomach. The briefings had prepared them for what they would see, but actually being here was different. This was the grave of their entire species history. Captain Alex Thompson's voice came through their communication system from the fleet. Recon 1, you are clear to approach the target. Remember, minimal contact. We need you back with information. Copy that, Control, Mike replied. He piloted the craft through the debris field, dodging chunks of rock that had once been part of humanity's first home in space. Their ship's advanced hull absorbed all sensor scans, making them invisible to Zephyrian detection systems. As they broke through the debris field, Earth came into view. Mike had to grip his controls harder to keep his hands from shaking. The planet below them was not the blue and green world from the old pictures. It was gray and brown, covered in clouds that glowed with radioactive light. Nothing could live down there now, but on the surface, Mike could see structures. Large buildings and monuments that definitely had not been there when humanity lived on Earth. The Zephyrians had built something on the bones of the human homeworld. There, Kate pointed to a massive complex near what had once been Europe. That's got to be their memorial site. Look at the size of it. The complex was huge, covering hundreds of square miles. From orbit, they could see pyramid-shaped buildings, curved domes, and tall spires that reached up toward space. Everything was made from the same crystal material as the monument they had seen earlier. Taking us down, Mike announced. He guided their craft toward a landing site near the edge of the complex. The stealth systems would keep them hidden, but they would have to be careful once they were on the ground. They landed behind a hill of radioactive dirt and rock. Mike opened the hatch and stepped out onto Earth for the first time in his life. The ground felt wrong under his feet, like it was sick and dying. His radiation suit beeped softly, warning him about the dangerous levels of energy in the air. "Suits sealed, everyone," he ordered. "This place will kill us in minutes without protection." They moved carefully toward the Zephyrian complex. As they got closer, they could see more details. The buildings were covered in writing and pictures that told the story of Earth's destruction. Holographic displays showed Zephyrian warships firing on human cities. Other images showed aliens celebrating as the planet burned. "I'm going to be sick," Danny muttered, staring at a display that showed human children running from alien soldiers. "Focus on the mission," Mike said, though he felt the same rage building inside him. They needed to get information, not start a fight they could not win. They found an entrance to one of the main buildings. Kate used her scanner to check for guards while Mike worked on the door. The Zephyrian security systems were advanced, but human technology was better. After a few minutes, the door slid open. Inside, they found a museum dedicated to the Zephyrian Empire's greatest victories. Display cases showed artifacts from dozens of different worlds. Weapons, art, and personal items from species that no longer existed. The Zephyrians had not just destroyed Earth. They had been doing this for thousands of years. "Look at this," Kate called from across the room. She was standing in front of a large display that showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked worlds that the Zephyrians had destroyed. There were hundreds of them. Mike walked over to join her. Next to the map was a list of species that had been cleansed from the galaxy. Humans were just one name among many. The Korth, the Vitani, the Sektar, dozens of civilizations that Mike had never heard of because they no longer existed. Danny found a computer terminal and plugged in his data recorder. "I'm downloading everything I can. The Admiral needs to see this." As Danny worked, Mike and Kate explored more of the museum. They found records of the attack on Earth, including video footage of the planet's final moments. They watched in horror as Zephyrian ships fired their planet-killing weapons at major cities. The weapons did not just destroy buildings, they turned the very air into poison. "Captain Thompson, this is Recon 1, Mike spoke into his communicator. "We found something big. The Zephyrians didn't just destroy Earth, they've been doing this to everyone. This is genocide on a galactic scale." "Copy that, Recon 1. What's your status?" "We're inside their memorial complex. It's like a museum of all the species they've killed." Danny is downloading their records now. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Red lights flashed, and they could hear the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. "We've been detected," Kate said, raising her weapon. "Multiple contacts incoming." Mike grabbed Danny by the shoulder. "How much more do you need?" "2 more minutes," Danny replied, his fingers flying over the alien keyboard. "We don't have 2 minutes," Kate said. Through the doorway, they could see Zephyrian soldiers in full armor moving toward their position. The aliens were tall and insect-like, with 4 arms and compound eyes. Their weapons looked deadly. "Fall back to the secondary exit," Mike ordered. "Danny, grab what you can and let's move." Danny yanked his recorder free of the computer just as the first Zephyrian soldier entered the room. The alien raised its weapon, but Kate was faster. Her rifle fired a burst of quantum energy that tore the soldier apart at the molecular level. The alien simply vanished, leaving no trace behind. "Go, go, go!" Mike shouted. They ran through the museum as more alarms sounded. Behind them, Zephyrian soldiers were shouting in their own language. Mike could hear the fear in their voices. They had never seen weapons like the ones humans carried. More soldiers appeared in front of them, blocking their path to the exit. Danny dropped to one knee and fired his heavy weapon. The blast punched through 3 aliens at once, leaving smoking holes in the wall behind them. They reached their ship and threw themselves inside. Mike started the engines as Kate sealed the hatch. Outside, Zephyrian aircraft were beginning to appear, searching for the intruders who had violated their sacred site. Control, this is Recon 1, mission complete. We're coming home and we're bringing proof that will change everything. As their ship lifted off from the dead surface of Earth, Mike looked back at the alien complex one more time. The Zephyrians thought they were the masters of the galaxy, that they could destroy anyone they wanted without consequences. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Admiral Morrison stood in the main briefing room of the Retribution, watching as his commanders studied the intelligence that Mike Davis had brought back from Earth. The holographic display showed dozens of red dots scattered across the galaxy, each one marking a world that the Zephyrians had destroyed. They call it the Great Cleansing, Dr. Jennifer Clark said, pointing to the translated Zephyrian text. According to their records, they believe it's their holy duty to remove all inferior species from the galaxy. They've been doing this for over 5,000 years. Commodore Steve Baker slammed his fist on the table. Bastards, every single one of those dots was a living world with billions of people. And they turned it all into a religious crusade, Jake nodded grimly. The evidence was clear. The Zephyrian Empire was not just humanity's enemy, it was the enemy of all life in the galaxy. They had to be stopped, and humanity was the only force strong enough to do it. We're going to hit them where it hurts most, Jake announced. Steve, you'll take Battle Group Alpha to Proxima Centauri. Intelligence shows they have 3 major industrial worlds there. Those factories build the weapons they use for their genocides. Steve Baker straightened in his chair. He commanded 70 ships and had been waiting his whole life for this moment. What are my orders, sir? Total destruction. I want those worlds turned into dead rocks. Show the galaxy that humanity has returned and we're not the same species that ran away 3,000 years ago. Jake turned to another officer. Chris, you'll take Battle Group Beta to the Vega system. There's a Zephyrian military academy there where they train their officers. Make sure there won't be any more classes. Rear Admiral Chris Nelson smiled coldly. He had studied every battle the Zephyrians had fought, learned all their tactics and strategies. It will be my pleasure, Admiral. Those alien bastards won't know what hit them. The rest of us will stay here and prepare for the final assault on their homeworld, Jake continued. But first, we need to send a message that the entire galaxy will hear. 2 days later, Steve Baker stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance as his battle group dropped out of hyperspace near Proxima Centauri. The system was exactly as intelligence had described it. 3 heavily industrialized worlds orbited the red dwarf star, their surfaces covered in massive factories and weapons plants. Sir, we're detecting over 200 Zephyrian ships in system, reported his tactical officer. Mostly cargo vessels and light escorts, but there are at least 30 warships. Steve smiled. They're not expecting us. Launch all fighters and prepare the main guns. I want those industrial platforms taken out first. Major Helen Carter was already in her drop pod, waiting for the order to launch. She commanded 5,000 human soldiers, all of them enhanced with genetic modifications and equipped with the best armor humanity could build. They had trained for this mission their entire lives. Major Carter, you are cleared for planetary assault. Steve's voice came through her communicator. Your target is the orbital shipyards above Proxima. Prime, take them intact if possible, destroy them if not. Copy that, Commodore. We're on our way. Helen felt the familiar rush as her pod launched from the Vengeance. Around her, thousands of other pods streaked toward their targets like metal raindrops. The Zephyrian defense platforms opened fire, filling space with energy beams and missile trails, but the human pods were too fast and too well armored. They punched through the alien defenses and slammed into the orbital stations. Helen kicked open her pod door and stepped out into a Zephyrian shipyard for the first time. The aliens were waiting for her. 3 Zephyrian soldiers in full battle. Armor came around a corner, their weapons already firing. But Helen was faster. Her powered armor made her stronger and quicker than any normal human. She dodged their shots and returned fire with her plasma rifle. The first alien took a direct hit to the chest and collapsed. The second one tried to run, but Helen's rifle tracked it automatically and fired. The third soldier managed to get behind cover, But Helen simply walked through the metal wall like it was paper. Her armor's strength boosters let her tear through steel with her bare hands. "Sector 7 is clear," she reported. Around the station, she could hear the sounds of battle as her soldiers fought their way through Zephyrian defenders. The aliens were brave, but they were not prepared for the fury of humanity's revenge. Meanwhile, in space, the battle was going just as well. Captain Nina Rodriguez led her fighter squadron in an attack on the Zephyrian fleet. Her ship was small and fast, built for hit-and-run tactics that the aliens had never seen before. "Hawk leader to all fighters," she called over the radio. "Target their command ship first. Take out their coordination and the rest will fall apart." Nina dove toward the largest Zephyrian warship, dodging defensive fire with moves that would have been impossible for a normal human pilot. But Nina was not normal. Her reflexes had been enhanced, her body modified to handle the stress of high-speed combat. She fired her ship's main gun at point-blank range. The quantum torpedo struck the alien ship and simply erased a 50-meter section of its hull. Atmosphere and debris exploded out into space as the ship began to break apart. "Direct hit!" Nina shouted. "Their command ship is going down." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Proxima Centauri system belonged to humanity. The industrial worlds were burning wrecks, their factories destroyed and their populations evacuated or dead. The orbital shipyards were either captured or demolished. Steve Baker stood on his bridge and looked at the destruction they had caused. It felt good. For 3,000 years, humanity had dreamed of this moment. "Open a channel to all surviving Zephyrian ships," he ordered. "Channel open, sir." Steve looked directly into the camera. "This is Commodore Baker of the human fleet. Your empire destroyed our world and tried to wipe us out. Now we're returning that favor. Tell your leaders that humanity has come home and we're collecting our debts." At the same time, Chris Nelson was leading his own attack on the military academy in the Vega system. The battle was even more one-sided than Steve's assault. The Zephyrian cadets and instructors were no match for human veterans who had been planning this war for centuries. Commander Paul Matthews coordinated the psychological warfare campaign. He made sure that news of the human attack spread across Zephyrian communication networks. Videos of burning alien worlds and destroyed fleets were broadcast to every corner of their empire. The message was simple and clear: the species that the Zephyrians thought they had destroyed was back, and it was stronger than ever. Humanity was no longer running from superior technology in overwhelming numbers. Now they were the ones with better weapons and the tactical advantage. Dr. Susan Wright watched the battle reports from her laboratory aboard the Retribution. She had spent decades perfecting humanity's new weapons, and now she could see how effective they were. The Zephyrians had not advanced their technology in thousands of years because they had never needed to. They had always fought primitive civilizations that could not fight back, but humanity was different. Humanity had learned, adapted, and grown stronger. The refugees who had fled Earth were gone, replaced by warriors who had spent 3 millennia preparing for war. Admiral Morrison. Susan called over the communication system. "The nanite weapons are ready for deployment. We can sterilize entire worlds now, just like they did to Earth." Jake Morrison smiled as he received the report. The Zephyrian Empire had made one critical mistake when they destroyed Earth. They had left survivors. And those survivors had not spent 3,000 years forgetting about their lost home. They had spent 3,000 years getting ready to take their revenge. Emperor Zarthok stood in his throne room on the planet Zephyros, watching the reports pour in from across his empire. World after world was falling to the human fleet. The species his ancestors had thought extinct was tearing his civilization apart piece by piece. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked his military commander, General Vextar. "Over 800 vessels, Your Majesty," the general replied, his forearms trembling with fear. "The humans have weapons we cannot defend against. Their ships appear out of nowhere, destroy everything, and vanish before our reinforcements can arrive." Zarthok slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. 3,000 years ago, the Zephyrian Empire had been unstoppable. They had crushed the humans with ease, turning their blue world into radioactive dust. Now those same humans had returned as an unstoppable force of destruction. What about our allies? The Emperor demanded. Have the other empires responded? To our calls for help? General Vextar lowered his head. No, Your Majesty. The Corvan Republic says they cannot spare any ships. The Thaxian Union refuses to even answer our messages. The Galactic Council has declared this a local conflict and will not intervene. Zarthok knew why no one would help them. The Zephyrian Empire had made too many enemies over the centuries. They had destroyed so many worlds, enslaved so many species, that the rest of the galaxy was happy to watch them burn. Then we make our stand here, the Emperor declared. Recall all remaining fleets to Zephyros. If the humans want to destroy US, they will have to pay the highest price possible. 3 days later, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution as the human fleet approached the Zephyrian homeworld. Intelligence reports showed that the aliens had gathered over 1,500 ships to defend their capital. It would be the largest space battle in galactic history. Sir, we're outnumbered 3-1, Captain Lisa Howard reported. Are you sure about this strategy? Jake smiled coldly. Numbers don't matter when you have better technology. Besides, we've been waiting 3,000 years for this moment. I'm not backing down now. General Robert King commanded the assault fleet from his flagship, the, Judgment. He had served in the military his entire life, and everything had led to this battle. The chance to destroy the species that had murdered his ancestors and billions of other humans. All ships, this is General King, he announced over the fleet communication system. Today we finish what the Zephyrians started 3,000 years ago. Today we show the galaxy that genocide has consequences. The human fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Their ships were smaller than the Zephyrian vessels, but each one carried weapons that could tear apart matter at the atomic level. Dr. Kevin Moore had designed the reality disruptors himself, spending decades perfecting the technology. Enemy fleet is moving to intercept, reported Colonel Sarah Mitchell from her position on the orbital bombardment platform. I count 1,200 active warships plus support vessels. Take out their defense platforms first, Jake ordered. I want clear space around the planet before we engage their main fleet. Sarah's platform opened fire with weapons that bent space itself. The Zephyrian defense stations simply vanished as the fabric of reality twisted around them. Where massive fortresses had been, now there was only empty space. The alien fleet tried to respond, but their weapons were useless against human shielding technology. Energy beams that could have destroyed cities bounced harmlessly off the hulls of human ships. Missiles that could crack moons were absorbed by defensive fields and turned into harmless light. Captain Tony Garcia led the first wave of assault ships directly at the heart of the Zephyrian formation. His squadron included Captain Maria Santos and Commander Jack Phillips, veterans who had fought in every major battle of the war. Remember, we want the Emperor alive if possible, Tony said over the radio. Intel says he's in the palace on the northern continent. Copy that, Tony, Maria replied, but if he tries to run, all bets are off. The space battle raged for 8 hours. Human ships darted through the Zephyrian fleet like predators hunting prey. Every shot they fired destroyed an enemy vessel. Every maneuver they made was perfectly calculated to cause maximum damage. The Zephyrians fought bravely, but they were fighting with technology that was thousands of years out of date. Their empire had grown lazy from easy victories against primitive worlds. They had never developed better weapons because they had never needed them. General King watched from his command ship as the alien fleet fell apart. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were being cut down like wheat before a harvester. The mighty Zephyrian Empire was dying and humanity was the executioner. Sir, the enemy flagship is trying to escape, his tactical officer reported. Not on my watch, King replied. All ships, target the command vessel. Don't let a single alien escape to spread their poison elsewhere. 20 human ships focused their fire on the Zephyrian flagship. The massive alien vessel tried to activate its jump drive, but human jammers prevented it from entering hyperspace. Trapped and helpless, it began to break apart under the concentrated assault. On the surface of Zephyros, Emperor Zarthok watched his fleet die through the windows of his palace. The humans had come for their revenge, and nothing could stop them. His advisors begged him to surrender, to try to negotiate some kind of peace, but Zarthok knew there would be no mercy. The humans had not traveled across the galaxy and fought for 3,000 years just to take prisoners. They had come to end the Zephyrian Empire forever. "Activate the palace self-destruct," he ordered his guards. "Your Majesty, surely there must be another way," one of them pleaded. "There is no other way," Zarthok replied. "The humans will not be satisfied with conquest. They want complete extinction just as we gave them. At least this way I die with dignity." The countdown began as human assault ships landed in the palace courtyard. Tony Garcia and his Marines broke through the main doors just as the Emperor's guards made their final stand. The battle was brief but fierce. Tony reached the throne room with seconds to spare. He could see Emperor Zarthok standing beside a control panel, his hand hovering over the final activation switch. "Stop!" Tony shouted. "You're under arrest for crimes against humanity and genocide." Zarthok looked at the human soldier and smiled. "You think you have won, but you have only become what we were. Conquerors, destroyers. The galaxy will fear you just as they feared us." "Maybe," Tony replied, raising his weapon. "But at least we won't commit genocide in the name of religion." The Emperor pressed the button. The palace exploded in a ball of nuclear fire that could be seen from orbit. Tony and his Marines had barely made it to their ship before the blast consumed everything within 50 miles. Admiral Morrison watched the explosion from space. The Zephyrian homeworld was burning, its capital city a glowing crater. The Empire that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was finally dead. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining alien ships," Captain Howard reported. Jake nodded. The war was over, humanity had won. But as he looked at the burning planet below, he wondered if the Emperor's final words had been right. Had they become the very thing they had set out to destroy? Only time would tell. 6 months after the fall of Zephyros, Admiral Morrison stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral station of Nexus Prime. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the massive chamber, all watching him with a mixture of fear and respect. The human fleet surrounded the station, a constant reminder of humanity's new power. "Members of the Council," Jake began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "For too long, this galaxy has allowed genocide to flourish. The Zephyrian Empire destroyed hundreds of worlds, wiped out entire civilizations, and you did nothing to stop them." The Corvin Republic's ambassador shifted nervously in his seat. "Admiral Morrison, the Zephyrians were a powerful empire. We you could not risk getting involved," Jake interrupted. "You were happy to trade with them, to benefit from their stolen resources, as long as they left you alone. Well, that ends now." Ambassador Lisa Chang stepped forward from her position behind Jake. She had been chosen to represent humanity's diplomatic interests, though everyone knew the real power still lay with the military. "The human government has prepared a new set of galactic laws," she announced. "Any species found guilty of systematic genocide will face immediate intervention by human forces." A murmur of concern swept through the chamber. The Thaxian Union's representative, a tall creature with blue skin and 6 eyes, raised one of his arms. "And who decides what constitutes genocide? Who gives humanity the right to police the galaxy?" Jake smiled coldly. "We do. We have the strongest fleet, the best technology, and 3,000 years of experience being the victims of genocide. That gives us every right." Dr. Michelle Brown watched the proceedings from the human delegation area. She had been working on the terraforming project for New Earth, humanity's new capital world in former Zephyrian space. The planet was beautiful now, with blue oceans and green continents that reminded everyone of the Earth they had lost. "The terraforming is proceeding ahead of schedule," she had reported to Jake earlier. New Earth will be ready for full colonization within 2 years. We're calling the first city memorial in honor of our dead homeworld. Now, watching the alien delegates argue and protest, Michelle knew that humanity's real work was just beginning. Destroying the Zephyrian Empire had been the easy part. Building a new galactic order would be much harder. General Patricia Adams commanded the new monitoring stations that humanity was establishing throughout former Zephyrian space. These bases served as early warning systems, watching for any signs of aggressive expansion or genocidal activities by other species. "Sir, we're detecting unusual military buildup in the Centauran sector," she reported to Jake during one of their regular briefings. "The Vorthan Confederacy appears to be massing ships near the border of Quillan space," Jake frowned. The Quillans were a peaceful species of plant-like beings who had no military to speak of. If the Vorthans were planning an invasion, it would be exactly the kind of aggression that humanity was sworn to prevent. "Dispatch Captain Lee's fleet to the area," Jake ordered. "Make it clear to the Vorthans that humanity is watching." Captain Brandon Lee had been chosen to command the genocide prevention fleet, a force of 50 ships dedicated to protecting vulnerable species from extinction. His flagship, the UHS Guardian, was equipped with the latest human technology and crewed by volunteers who believed in their mission. "This is Captain Lee of the Human Genocide Prevention Fleet," he broadcast to the Vorthan ships when he arrived. "In the Centauran sector. You are ordered to withdraw from Quillan space immediately." The Vorthan commander tried to argue, claiming they were conducting routine military exercises. But when Brandon's ships demonstrated their quantum weapons, by vaporizing an asteroid, the alien fleet quickly retreated to their own territory. "Threat neutralized," Brandon reported back to Jake. "The Quillans are safe for now." But Jake knew that not every situation would be resolved so easily. Throughout the galaxy, species that had grown used to taking what they wanted from weaker civilizations were being forced to change their ways. Some adapted quickly, but others resisted. Commander Eric Johnson led one of the deep space exploration fleets that pushed into unexplored regions of the galaxy. His mission was to find new species before they could become either victims or perpetrators of genocide. "Admiral, we've made contact with a civilization in the Outer Rim," Eric reported during one of his missions. "They call themselves the Nexari. They're technologically advanced but seem peaceful. What's their history with their neighbors?" Jake asked. "Clean, sir. No signs of aggressive expansion or systematic violence. They actually seem to be protecting several less advanced species in their region." Jake nodded with satisfaction. It was good to find species that understood the value of protecting the weak instead of exploiting them. "Invite them to join our alliance. We can use more friends in this galaxy." The alliance was growing slowly but steadily. Species that had been victims of Zephyrian aggression were eager to join humanity's protection network. Others were more cautious, but the message was getting through. The days of unpunished genocide were over. Dr. Amanda Foster continued her work developing new technologies for the human fleet. But now, instead of focusing only on weapons, she was also creating tools for peaceful purposes. Medical equipment, terraforming devices, and communication systems that could help bring the galaxy together. "We're not just conquerors," she explained to her research team. "We're builders. We have a chance to create something better than what came before." On New Earth, children played in parks where flowers bloomed under an artificial sun. They were the first generation of humans to grow up without the burning desire for revenge that had driven their parents and grandparents. For them, the war with the Zephyrians was ancient history, but their teachers made sure they understood the lesson. In schools throughout human space, children learned about the importance of protecting the innocent and standing up to bullies. They learned that with great power came the responsibility to use it wisely. Jake Morrison, now an old man, walked through the Memorial Garden in New Earth's capital city. Each tree represented 1 billion humans who had died when Earth was destroyed. The garden was vast, covering hundreds of acres, a reminder of the price of genocide. Near the center of the garden stood a simple stone monument with words carved in dozens of languages. Never again, it read. To any species on any world for any reason. A young reporter approached him as he stood before the monument. Admiral Morrison, do you ever regret what humanity did to the Zephyrian Empire? Jake was quiet for a long moment, thinking about all the lives lost, all the worlds burned, all the choices that had brought them to this point. I regret that it was necessary, he finally said. But I don't regret doing it. Sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to become something stronger. And what about Emperor Zarthaka's final words? His claim that humanity had become just like the Zephyrians? Jake looked up at the stars visible through the garden's dome. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled the spaceways, protecting the weak and keeping the peace. The difference, he said, is that we stopped the monsters instead of becoming them. That's what makes us human. As night fell over New Earth, children went to sleep safely in their beds, protected by guardians who remembered what it felt like to lose everything. The galaxy was not perfect and probably never would be. But it was better than it had been. And in the darkness between the stars, humanity's ships continued their eternal watch, making sure that no species would ever again face the horror of systematic extinction. The debt had been paid, and now it was time to build something worth protecting.